Exposed, 7 sinister rules that haunt the night guard of a cursed rural amusement park. Josh rubbed his weary eyes, looking up at the rusting archway of Timberwood Amusement Park. What had once been a place of joy now stared back at him with hollow eyes. Dilapidated rides creaked like tortured souls in the night. He could feel the chill creeping under his skin, a sensation that wrapped around his heart like a vice. Lately laid off from the factory, he'd taken this job, knowing each paycheck meant food for his kids, but standing guard at a haunted park made every hour drip with dread. The air grew heavy as shadows danced under the moonlight, brimming with unsettling whispers. The distant howls of an unseen presence stirred the stillness, and though terror scratched at his mind, curiosity tugged at him like a child's hand. A child's laughter echoed around him, yet there were no children in sight. Just a cold breeze brushing against his cheek, sending a shiver down his spine. What fresh hell was this? Before he could consider turning back, a flicker distracted him. Was that light? From deep within the abandoned ghost train, a wavering glow beckoned him closer. Against all reason, he felt himself inching forward. The rusted metal beneath his feet groaned, protesting his advance while the laughter grew louder. As he drew near, a woman and her 2 children emerged from the shadows, startling him to his core. Their faces were pale, hauntingly familiar, but before he could utter a word, they dissolved into thin air, leaving only silence to mock him. "All right, Josh," he muttered under his breath, "you need to keep it together." He sat down, gripping the fraying edges of the rusty stool, as he tried to ground himself. But as the minutes dragged, the sinister atmosphere escalated. The Ferris wheel creaked like a forlorn ghost, a reminder of the screams and laughter that once filled the park. Why had he taken this shift under the pale moonlight? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The whispers turned to cries, calling out in despair, telling tales of a tragedy buried under layers of time. Echoes followed him, hovering like a thick fog, the carousel's painted horses glaring with hollow eyes as if demanding justice for the secrets long hidden. Each ride felt alive, trapping echoes of laughter that twisted into moans, each corner seeming to twist reality into nightmare. Josh felt panic clawing at him, the air growing thick with impending doom. He was not alone in this convoluted darkness. Then he stumbled upon the tarnished park rules, draped in cobwebs but seeped with horror. It whispered of blood debts and unholy pacts made, a tale of those who had loved the park but paid a grim price. The faces of the townsfolk flashed in his mind, friendly smiles that concealed the very heart of the darkness. What had happened here? Why did it feel like the night itself was a predator, crouching, ready to strike? Suddenly, a flicker caught his attention again. The ground trembled slightly beneath his boots, and the muffled giggles returned, but this time, an unnatural chill slithered up his spine. The barrier between nightmares and reality was fading. Something was watching, something ancient, hungry, claiming dominion over Timberwood Amusement Park. As he clutched a flashlight tightly, the shadows merged with the trees, bearing down on him. How much longer could he keep running from ghosts that carried the burdens of the past? Each heartbeat echoed in his ears, loud and desperate. The dance between life and death waged on, and Josh was right at the center. What had he unleashed? Josh's breath quickened, fear mixing with adrenaline as he felt the shadows close in. Each creak of the park felt like a whisper, every flicker of light a beckoning hand pulling him deeper into the haunting night. He forced his feet to move, stepping away from the ghost train, but the strange pull was strong. An insistent voice echoed in his mind, "Stay. Just investigate. What harm could it bring?" He shook his head, clearing the fog of his own curiosity. No. He should leave this dreadful place. But the laughter, it was different now. It twisted, morphed into wails that curled around him like serpents. Confusion mingled with horror. Why was he still here? Clutching the flashlight, he swung it back towards the ghost train. The glow flickered again, more urgent, almost like it was screaming for help. Each step felt like walking through molasses. As he neared the entrance, the air thickened, and the whispers turned to a cacophony of haunting voices. They merged, creating a chilling harmony that echoed off the cracked walls. He froze, flashlight trembling in his grip. A figure appeared, a shadowy silhouette of a girl, standing at the entrance of the train, her eyes wide and dark. "Help me," she croaked, her voice brittle like dry leaves. Josh's heart stopped. The very air crackled, and the faint outline of the translucent girl flickered, a mere illusion, or something more? He felt the weight of her gaze, drawing him forward, each absorption of his reason urging him to step closer. But when he did, she faded, wrenching away his chance for comfort. "No!" he shouted, despair filling the void. "Please don't go." In his mind, the park erupted with riotous laughter, drowning the sound of his plea. The laughter danced through the tattered rides, resounding from the forgotten corners of the park. The Ferris wheel began turning slowly, creaking ominously as it crested the top and plunged back down, the ghostly echoes of past joy twisting into anguished cries. Beneath his feet, history seemed to breathe, a pulse of sadness quaking the ground, and all around him shadows torched with unrelenting despair began to swirl. A low growl came from the direction of the carousel, growing louder, pulling at the edges of his sanity. Something was awakening. The specters of grief and anger stitched the air with an unsettling urgency, clamoring for freedom. He spun around and took off running. He needed to escape. The shadows clawed at him, tendrils of darkness that grasped for his ankles, his legs, trying to pull him back into the abyss. The flashlight flickered, casting grotesque shadows that twisted and laughed grotesquely. He dashed for the exit, the park's rusted gate looming in the distance. But as he neared, the ground shook, and an ear-splitting shriek filled the air, a warning, a command. A shadow leapt out from the carousel, an indistinct mass that flashed in and out of view. The flickers formed into more shapes, distorted faces forming in the darkness, mouths opening in silent screams. The girl's gaze was now one of agony, pleading for release from whatever was stirring within the park's depths. Josh skidded to a halt, understanding crashing over him like icy water. He was trapped, caught in a web of sorrow and rage. Whatever horrors lay buried here were clawing their way back. There was no escape, not yet. "I can help you," he shouted, desperation flooding his voice. "Just tell me what to do." But the only reply was deafening silence, and a tremor ran through the ground. The shadows writhed and twisted, forming a swirling vortex of despair, closing in. What had he unleashed? He didn't know yet, but he was about to find out. As the laughter turned to a horrific cacophony, an unseen force pushed him from behind, driving him toward the throbbing darkness of the ghost train. With no choice left, he stumbled backward into the depths of the ride, plunging into an abyss where the truth awaited, a truth that threatened to consume him whole. Would he uncover the terrible secrets of Timberwood, or would he become yet another victim of its cursed legacy? The darkness swallowed Josh as he fell backward into the ghost train's maw, his heart racing. He landed hard on a gritty, cold surface, groaning as the air rushed from his lungs. His flashlight sputtered with a final flicker, plunging him into total blackness. Panic surged, he scrambled to find his bearings. Walls pressed in around him, their surfaces rough and damp. "Hello?" His voice echoed, swallowed by the silence. The cacophony of twisted laughter faded, replaced by a heavy stillness that hummed with anticipation. Josh pushed himself onto his knees, scanning the suffocating gloom, straining to hear something, anything. The shadows around him felt alive, slithering and whispering secrets just beyond the reach of comprehension. Then he heard it, a faint clicking, like the scratching of nails against metal. It was coming from somewhere deep within the ride. He followed the noise, driven by a mix of dread and determination. The ground beneath him shifted slightly as he moved, as if it were alive and eager to drag him into its depths. Each step was a battle against the oppressive weight of fear crushing down on him. Just as he turned a corner, he spotted a glimmer. Hope fluttered like a feeble candle in the wind. "Please let this lead somewhere," he murmured. Light. It flickered ahead, dancing in a way that felt unnervingly inviting. He approached it cautiously. The walls closed in tighter, moss dripped from the beams, and a faint, moldy scent filled his nostrils. The light revealed a small chamber, its size barely enough for him to move around. Old ride souvenirs hung on the walls like cursed trophies, tattered clown masks, faded photographs of grinning children, and rusted ticket stubs layered with age. But that wasn't what held his attention. No, it was the girl. She stood at the far end, her ghostly form illuminated by the soft glow that emanated from a miniature carousel spinning slowly beside her. "Why did you follow me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper but echoing in his mind. I can help you," he stammered, fear pulsing through him in rhythm with the carousel's slow, haunting rotation. "Help me?" she scoffed, her face twisting into a macabre grin. "No one can help me." He stepped back, a cold chill spreading through his bones. She pointed toward a darkened corner of the room. "You must understand the rules. The rules before you can even think of helping." "What rules?" he asked, his voice trembling as much as his legs. "The 7 sinister rules that keep them at bay. Safe. There's a price to pay, but you won't have to suffer, will you?" Each word hung in the air like a blade, ready to cut the threads of his sanity. Desperation clawed at him. "Tell me. What are the rules?" She lingered for a moment, then the shadows deepened, twisting like vengeful spirits around her. "1. Never summon the dark," she began, her voice chillingly calm. 2. Never draw near the carousel after midnight. Josh gasped as the shadows flared around him, reaching for his very soul. He understood, these were the rules he was never meant to break. But fear and curiosity twisted together, fueling his need to know more, even as each rule felt like a countdown to his doom. Frantically, he stepped forward to listen, but the moment he did, the carousel screeched to life, drowning out her voice. It spun faster and faster, casting monstrous shapes against the chamber walls. The girl's figure flickered like an old film, growing more unstable. Josh pressed his palms against his ears, trying to block out the cacophony, the horror, the urging of the shadows. Before he could argue, a blinding light burst forth, forcing him to shield his eyes. The ride surged, the chamber echoed with a deafening roar, and the girl vanished in a whirlwind of shadows. The carousel continued its chaotic spin, and the ground trembled. Josh stumbled back against the now frigid wall. He didn't know if he could survive the truth that lay tangled within the chaos. What hidden horrors and sinister designs awaited him within the rules of this haunted place? As the walls pulsed. With despair, he pondered whether unearthing them would mean liberation or his ultimate downfall. The carousel spun with a deafening shriek, its warped music carving through the darkness like a knife. Josh's heart raced as the shadows closed in on him, almost tangible, almost alive. He dropped to the ground, desperately shielding himself from the nightmare that unfolded around him. The echoes of forgotten children's laughter warped into cries of terror, twisting through the air like a serpent. Taking a deep breath, Josh forced himself to his feet, staggering towards the flickering light. Each step felt like wading through a thick tar of dread. What had that girl meant? What were the other rules? He had to know. The light pulsed, beckoning him forward. Tattered remnants of childhood joy surrounded him, broken toys, faded banners, and remnants of cotton candy. These discarded charms of happiness now turned into tokens of despair. He pressed on, fighting through the overwhelming urge to flee. Another sound pierced the chaos, the soft, sinister laughter of children, distant yet chilling. Was it real? Or just an echo of his sanity slipping away? 3. Never trust what you see, a whisper crept into his mind, echoing the girl's voice. It was like she lingered in the shadows, weaving her words into a dark tapestry that wrapped around him. Was this the third rule? He stumbled forward, each breath heavy with fear, every muscle tense. What do you want from me? He shouted into the void, desperation spilling from his lips. He received no answer, only the spinning carousel mocking his terror. Josh turned sharply, his senses heightened, scanning the chamber for movement. The room felt like it was breathing, inhaling as he inched deeper into its belly. The walls shimmered with an oily sheen, distorted reflections of himself and twisted figures flashed before him, dragging him deeper into a fabricated reality. He pressed forward, his fingers grazing the cool metal of the carousel. The toy horses twisted and turned, their eyes seemingly fixed on him, pleading or perhaps mocking. The more he stared, the more warped the world around him became. He could feel the air thickening, it tugged at his clothes and threatened to pull him into the depths of the carousel's madness. 4. Never stand still in the dark, echoed the girl's voice, slicing through the haze. Josh took a step back, trembling, trying to remember and replay the haunting echoes of those 7 deadly rules. What would happen if he broke them? Panic surged, he could feel the weight of the shadows crowding him, shouldering in closer, their whispers rising to a fever pitch. Suddenly, the temperature dropped. Josh could see his breath paler than the frosted glass of a window. A figure emerged from the wall beside him, a tall, dark shape with hollow eyes that absorbed the light. Fear wrapped around his throat, choking him. This thing knew him, knew his fears, and it wanted something. 5. The figure rasped, its voice an eerie mimicry of the girl's. Never ask for what you cannot afford to pay. A deep fear twisted in Josh's gut. What did that mean? A price to pay for what? He took a step back, trying to find a way out, but the laughing voices surged, rising like a cacophony of veiled threats. What do I do? He yelled to the creature, his pulse pounding in his ears. I am the darkness, it hissed, lunging forward, its shape shifting, distending, becoming an unbearable nightmare. He stumbled, losing his footing, but the shadows surged with renewed energy, clawing at his heels. In that breathless moment, clarity struck him. He had to remember the girl's words, the rules. He couldn't succumb. As the darkness enveloped him, Josh thought desperately of the final rule, the one he hadn't yet grasped. Time slipped away as he plunged deeper into the twisted embrace of the unknown, each heartbeat echoing the unuttered horrors that loomed ahead. 6. What's 6? He whispered, as something cold wrapped around his wrist, drawing him into the abyss. With one last surge of desperation, he fought against the darkness, knowing the final truth lay just beyond his reach. The chill intensified, wrapping around Josh like a vice. His breath quickened, the sensation of icy fingers tightening on his wrist pulling him deeper into the consuming shadows. Panic surged within him. He couldn't let it take him. Not now, not when he was so close to understanding. Remember the rules, Josh, he frantically urged himself, ignoring the suffocating darkness clinging like wet cloth to his skin. 6. What's 6? The darkness pressed in, merging with the shadows around him. He struggled against the unseen binds, trying to envision the girl's face, her familiar gaze etched in determination. Find the light, she had said, didn't she? The carousel screeched, drowning his thoughts in its endless whirl. That's it, he whispered fiercely. The light. With all his strength, he twisted free from the icy fingers clamped around him and ran blindly toward the flickering radiance ahead. The shadows wailed behind him, sharp and shrill, the fabric of fear loosening just enough for him to escape. But as he sprinted, another figure emerged, the same twisted form with its hollow, unblinking eyes. Josh skidded to a halt, heart pounding against his ribs. The figure raised a long, skeletal finger, pointing straight at him. 6. Never deal with what you cannot see. Its voice slithered through the air, and Josh shuddered, recalling with growing dread what the girl had warned him: illusions were everywhere. "What do you want?" he shouted, his voice cracking, battling the rising sense of despair gnawing at his sanity. "Everything." The carousel lurched violently, spinning faster as if it were a living entity feeding off his terror. He staggered back, still aware of the rules weighing heavily on his mind. "Please, just let me understand." He thought of his mom, his friends, the warmth of sunlight breaking through trees. Normalcy felt fragile yet desirable. The figure rumbled a low chuckle, one that sent jagged shivers down his spine. "You already know the price." Suddenly, what felt like 1,000 voices lashed at him, their cries merging into one merciless chant: "Sacrifice, sacrifice!" Josh realized the edges of his vision were beginning to blur, a sickly darkness creeping around him as if he were losing hope and control. The carousel screeched, its sound morphing into a mocking laughter, a cruel echo of the innocence that had once defined this place. He placed a hand over his heart. Was fear enough of a sacrifice? He offered it willingly. "I won't succumb," he whispered to himself, clutching the heat of his rage tightly. The ground trembled beneath his feet and shards of laughter erupted from the shadows. They seemed eager for his response, waiting for him to break. But instead, he forced himself to move forward. He wouldn't let them win. His body felt heavy as he crashed through the whirling darkness. At last, the light source became clearer, a pulsing orb hanging to the side of the carousel's axis, flickering with urgency as if it wanted him to come closer. He focused his thoughts on it, every ounce of his will calling out to that shining sphere. Just as he reached out, hands brushing its glowing surface, the laughter intensified, morphing into maniacal screams that split the oppressive air. Josh felt perilous tendrils gripping him, pulling him back. He cried out, bracing himself. "Let me go." The figure emerged beside him again, closer than before, its ghastly face inches from his. "You cannot bargain with shadows, child." But something in Josh ignited, a stubborn ember refusing to die. The light surged, responding to his defiance. It pulsed fiercely, illuminating the suffocating darkness around him, sparking hope and igniting a fight-or-flight instinct. But before he could grasp it fully, a chilling voice rose above the tumult, raspy and ancient. "You must face the truth or become part of the darkness forever." Suddenly, an epiphany shattered through him. The girl's warning echoed in his mind, illuminating the space before him with stark clarity. "Never ignore what has been lost." It spun like a warning just out of his grasp. He realized that confronting the figure and the darkness would have a heavier cost than he had ever anticipated. He stepped back, heart racing, understanding that the final rule was not just lurking in the shadows, it was embedded in the very essence of this haunted place. Before he could voice his realization, the tether snapped, and Josh found himself grappling with a choice. One path led to light, the other to an undeniable fate of shadows. Which path would he take? The ground trembled beneath him, pulling him towards an uncertain future, and he had to make his decision now. Josh's heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing the weight of his choice. Shadows swirled violently, cancerous tendrils reaching for him, hungry for his surrender. The light felt electric, almost alive, urging him to step forward. But the fear of darkness shackled him, squeezing tighter. "Face the truth or become part of the darkness forever," the voice echoed relentlessly. His mind raced, grasping at the fragments of the girl's warning. What had she meant? What truth awaited him in the light? A piercing laughter erupted, drowning his thoughts. The figure's form flickered, becoming a looming nightmare, its smile a grotesque twist on something that once resembled humanity. He felt the urge to flee, to hide, but desperation shot through him. "Six," he mumbled, trembling. "Never deal with what you cannot see." Was the light an illusion too? Time seemed suspended as he fought to break free from the shackles of dread. He turned slowly, his trembling hand inching toward the pulsing orb, a beacon in a sea of black chaos. "Choose." The figure's voice wrapped around him like a snake, tightening incrementally. "You wish to know the truth, don't you?" Or would you rather remain blissfully ignorant? Bile rose in his throat. Ignorance had brought him here, he couldn't let that lead him now. He wasn't just scared anymore, he was angry. A raw anger ignited inside him, shifting into determination. He stepped forward, asserting his will. The orb of light erupted, showering him in warmth. It felt pure, untainted by the darkness threatening to engulf him. "I'll face whatever lurks within the truth," he shouted at the figure, who recoiled momentarily. "I choose the light." As he grasped the light with both hands, it pulsed violently, sending a surge of energy through him. The carousel's whirling stopped in the blink of an eye, and the darkness wavered as if a gust of wind blew against it. But the figure remained, vibrant with malevolence, eyes glinting with something dangerously close to rage. "You think you can escape? The darkness is part of you now." It barked, its voice muffled under the weight of his decision. Josh experienced a tremor inside him, fissures trailing through his resolve. Visions flooded his mind, images of people he had lost, moments of joy turned into memories laced with pain. The truth began unraveling what had been lost. "My regrets are not my chains," he screamed, eyes wide with the weight of realization. The shadows hissed, recoiling from his defiance. The carousel began moving again, but slower now, as if aware that he stood his ground. Light and darkness danced around him in a chaotic rhythm, and he felt the pulse of both, battling for dominance. But beneath that chaos, something else emerged, a voice. Faint but familiar, it whispered, "Remember, what hurts is not easily forgotten." Another memory flickered, a girl with bright eyes. Sorrow danced and mixed with his fear. He gasped as comprehension sank in. "No," he murmured, trembling as the voice from the shadows twisted in delight. "I need to find her, to save her." The figure stepped closer, a disarmingly calm presence in the storm. "And what if she is the key to your sacrifice?" For a heartbeat, the world around him seemed to hold its breath. Josh locked eyes with the faceless darkness before him, the weight of his choice hanging like a storm cloud overhead. "Would you sacrifice your salvation for hers?" Josh's breath hitched in his throat, and the ground felt intoxicatingly unstable beneath him. His resolve wavered, grappling between salvation and sacrifice. The carousel whirled faster, shadows clinging tightly, wrapping around his ankles. "What will you choose?" The figure breathed, its breath icy and menacing. Her ormy dread seeped back in, pulling him into darkness. The air felt electric, suffocating, and Josh's world spun while the line between light and dark blurred dangerously. Could he find her? And at what cost? The carousel's light flickered again, and he knew he was running out of time. He took a deep breath, heart hammering against his chest. "I will find out the truth. I will uncover what has been lost." Then, just as he gathered his courage to shout her name, the ground beneath him gave way. He plunged into darkness, a scream caught in his throat, no light, no warmth, only the terrifying certainty that he might never escape. Falling. Josh's body plummeted, weightless for a terrifying moment, before he impacted hard on a cold, jagged ground that brought shockwaves of pain through him. He gasped, clutching his side, heart racing, but the darkness didn't relent. Thick and cloying, it surrounded him like a heavy fog, swallowing every sound, every breath. "Where am I?" he whispered, dread pooling in his gut. Silence answered, an echo of his own fear. The weight pressed on him again, heavier now, as if it had its own will, ready to drag him under. He struggled to his feet, his muscles protesting. The air tasted stale, the scent of damp earth and decay creeping in. Shadows danced along the walls of an unseen structure. Instinctively, he reached out, fingers brushing against the wall. It felt textured, rough stone or old wood. He couldn't tell. "Focus, Josh," he urged himself. Panic clawed at his brain, but he forced it down. With careful steps, he edged forward. A sliver of light appeared ahead, a doorway. Courage surged through his veins, but dread tugged at the back of his mind. What lay beyond the threshold? The faint whispers of the carousel echoed, and he paused, recalling the figure and its mocking stare. 6 sinister rules, haunt the night, his breath caught as he remembered the words. What rules? Determined, he pushed through the door into a room bathed in a sickly green glow. The walls were lined with symbols he didn't recognize, grotesque drawings twisted in agony and despair. A low hum reverberated through the space, sending chills skittering across his skin. In the center of the room was a table, cluttered with strange artifacts, rusted toys, glass jars filled with dark liquids, and bundled pieces of cloth arranged among silver trinkets. Josh's eyes widened at one jar, filled with something that twisted and writhed, a shadow of life trapped within. Was that a memory? A fragment of someone's past? What is this place? He muttered, stepping closer, dread washing over him again. Each artifact felt like a door to someone's worst nightmare. Suddenly, the whispers echoed louder, entwined with sinister laughter that slithered around him. Remember the rules, Josh. They bind you here. His heart dropped. What rules? He shouted into the oppressive space, desperately seeking a response. A figure flickered behind him, only for a fleeting moment, but enough to freeze him in place. Every night, a new sacrifice, the figure croaked, revealing itself in a flash. Eyes glittered in the darkness, hollow and mocking. Every rule you break, a long pause, shadows twisting dangerously, pulls you deeper. What do you want from me? Josh's voice trembled. His anger was starting to bleed away, replaced by something far worse: helplessness. Not what we want, boy. What do you want? The figure circled him, a ghostly shape slipping in and out of his sight. To save her? To save yourself? Josh didn't respond, fear knotting his gut. Memories spun in his head, the face of the girl, her bright eyes, lost in the labyrinth of his thoughts. I'll do anything, he said, realizing he was bargaining with a trap. Then you must discover the rules. Its voice dropped, thick and syrupy, wrapping around him. Understand why she is caught and who holds the strings. The room darkened, walls closing in, shadows rising in twisted forms, creeping toward him. Josh, find the truth or lose everything, the figure hissed, a smile stretching wider. There is always a price. With that, the light flickered once more, and the entire room swirled around him. Darkness rushed in, dragging him along an unseen path. He reached out, desperate to cling to something, anything. Wait. Tell me the rules. But the laughter followed him as he slipped away, into the abyss. As the shadows enveloped him, Josh's mind raced. Would he be able to uncover those rules in time? And if he did, what would he have to sacrifice to save her? The darkness pulsed, waiting for his next move. Falling again. Josh felt like he was tumbling through a bottomless pit, disoriented as tendrils of darkness cascaded around him, whispering secrets just beyond comprehension. A jolt tore through him, and suddenly he lay sprawled on a hard surface. Cold seeped into his bones while confusion clawed at his mind. He pushed himself up, choking back a wave of nausea. The smell of burnt rubber and rotting leaves permeated the air. He was back in that twisted place, but this time something felt different, more sinister, more alive. Shadows lurked at the edges of his vision, darting away every time he turned. Focus, he muttered under his breath. He needed a plan. He needed answers. As he stood, his gaze landed on a canvas tent embellished with faded colors, sagging like a wilted flower. Its entrance flapped gently in a non-existent breeze, teasing him. A pull rooted in his gut urged him forward. Was there something in there, something that could help him? The closer he got, the louder the echoes of laughter grew. It was chilling, mocking, and oh so real. Shadows wriggled, forming silhouettes that surrounded him, blocking any retreat. A voice, soft like silk but dripping with malice, chimed in his ear. Welcome, welcome. You've returned to play. His heart raced. What do you want from me? Josh shouted, but the wind carried his words away, lost in the laughter. Come, come, see what's inside. The voice bubbled with dark delight, enticing him forward. With a shaky breath, he stepped through the tattered flaps of the tent. Inside, an unsettling sight awaited him. It seemed to be a twisted carnival, vibrant and grotesque in equal measure. A pair of eerie clowns juggled severed limbs while carnival music played a dissonant tune that sent shivers down his spine. Tattered banners hung from the ceiling, their words blurred, but he could make out "Welcome to your nightmare." Do you remember the rules? The soft voice coiled around him, sending adrenaline pulsing through his veins. What rules? Josh felt mounting dread as he took a cautious step forward. The broken glass crunched beneath his feet, but he didn't dare turn back. Ah, but you must see to understand. The spectral figure appeared again, grinning with satisfaction. 6 sinister rules bind you to this place. Break one, and the price is heavy. What happens if I break them? Josh's voice shook as he glanced around at the twisted remnants of joy turned to horror. More than you can fathom, sweet boy. The figure stepped closer, its face momentarily exposed. The hollow eyes locked onto his, a void filled with agony. Only the truth shall set you free or chain you forever. Josh's heart pounded. He had to confront this malevolence head-on, there was no room for hesitation. Then tell me the rules. He felt desperate now, fueled by a flicker of hope amidst the terror. A cruel laugh echoed, reverberating through the air like thunder. Oh, we're not there yet. You have to earn that knowledge. Find the pieces scattered throughout this realm and only then will you unveil their meaning. Panic flooded his senses as shadows writhed at his feet, threatening to pull him into the depths of despair. You can't be serious. The figure laughed again, voice like ice. Seriousness means nothing here. Only survival matters. Take your first step, or do you wish to remain lost in the dark? Choose swiftly. Distracted by swirling entities, his gaze flicked toward a glint at the far end of the tent. Something sparkled in the darkness. An object? A promise of an answer? Before he could decide, the shadows coiled tighter around him, squeezing the breath from his lungs. The laughter grew louder, mocking his indecision. Time's ticking, Josh. How far are you willing to go? His chest felt tight, every heartbeat echoing in his ears. Was this his chance for clarity, or was he walking headfirst into a deeper trap? The air hummed with tension, he could feel it, taste it with sudden determination. He lunged toward the glint, but as he grasped it, the world shifted violently around him. The laughter dropped to a whisper, leaving him questioning everything. What do you truly want, Josh? The shadows pulsed, hungry and eager, waiting for his reply. And just like that, he felt himself slipping away again, down a darkened corridor, with only questions trailing behind him. Would he find the truth, or would he be eternally ensnared? The darkness pulled Josh in, wrapping him like a thick blanket. He felt weightless, adrift in a void that stretched endlessly. Then, with a jarring thud, he landed hard on a gravel path. The crunch beneath him was loud, almost deafening in the silence that surrounded him. He shot up, gasping for air, heart racing. This place was different. Dense fog draped over everything, wrapping the landscape in an eerie veil. Shapes loomed in the distance, blurred figures that shifted and twisted into unsettling forms. Trees bent unnaturally, clawing at the sky with black limbs. Where am I now? He whispered, realization dawning that he was still trapped in a nightmare. The shadows from before crept along the ground, teasing the edges of his vision, mocking his every thought. Suddenly, oppressive laughter erupted around him, filling the air with a chilly malevolence. Welcome to the Midnight Forest. A fine place to reflect on your journey. Josh spun around, desperately searching for the voice. What do you want? Just tell me. His voice barely masked the tremor beneath it. No need to rush, darling. There's so much to see, so much to learn. The voice coiled around him like a serpent, tightening with each word until it felt suffocating. Then the laughter changed, morphing into something low and guttural. Shadows darted between the trees, flickering with malicious energy. A pair of gaunt figures emerged from the mist, their faces featureless, shrouded in darkness, wraiths of despair and carnage. 2 more rules to discover, they hissed in unison, their voices echoing in his mind, stirring up dread. Josh shook his head, panic clawing at his throat as flashes of the earlier encounter darted through his mind. Why can't you just tell me? Oh, we will. One of them replied, a sinister glee in its tone. But not before you play a little game. Choose your path, left or right. It gestured to 2 narrow trails, both swallowed by the fog. Without a second thought, he chose the right path. As he moved deeper into the woods, the shadows thickened, whispering words he couldn't quite make out. The laughter faded slightly, replaced by a distant mournful wail that sent chills up his spine. The trees closed in, their branches clawing at him like skeletal fingers. Each step felt heavier, the air oppressive. Odors of decay and cold sweat filled his nostrils. Suddenly, he tripped on something, a small bottle, dirt caked on its surface. There it lay, half buried and forgotten. Josh picked it up, brushing away the grime. A faded label read Transmutation Essence. A drop of hope mingled with fear as he wondered if it was a tool of salvation or yet another blunder waiting to happen. What do you want from me? He shouted into the void. The only answer was the low rustle of leaves, whispering secrets of despair. The laughter returned, now more sinister. Good choice. But you're not out yet. Discover and decipher. Only knowledge holds the key to survival. Josh backed away, dread clawing at his mind. The ground beneath him trembled, cracking open to reveal a shadowy abyss. He stumbled but managed to regain his ground, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon him. Only the brave can escape. The mocking voice drifted out from the trees, sending tendrils of fear spiraling through him. Will you dare to uncover the truth behind the last rule? His resolve hardened. He wouldn't be another lost soul wandering this cursed land. He readied himself, clenching the bottle tight in his fist, every instinct screaming for him to flee. But before he could move, a cold wind whipped through the trees, swirling around him, lifting silhouettes that danced and hovered, faces twisted in agony, mouths open in silent screams. Choose wisely, Josh. Time is running out. With a deep breath, he pressed forward, determined to edge closer to the truth. But the darkness beckoned, pulling tighter, and with each step, he felt the weight of his decision grow. Would he be brave enough to survive? What truth lay waiting for him in the shadows? He had to know. Josh's heart thundered in his chest as he stepped deeper into the swirling fog, clutching the bottle tightly. He'd come too far to turn back now. The weight of his fears pressing down on him was almost unbearable, but a flicker of resolve kept him moving. The laughter echoed in the trees around him, taunting and layered with malice. He pressed onward, focusing on the flickers of light that danced just ahead. With each step, faces pulled themselves from the shadows, lost souls trapped in a cycle of despair, their silent screams clawing at his heart. They were calling for help, just like the girl. He couldn't waver now. 6. The sixth rule. He murmured, remembering the words that had slipped through his grasp. Never deal with what you cannot see. That realization coiled tightly around him, and with renewed strength, he pushed forward, determined to confront whatever lay ahead. As the trees began to thin, he spotted an eerie clearing illuminated by a twisted spotlight that flickered ominously. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it rested an ornate book, its pages fluttering slightly in the breeze, a beckoning call to unravel the secrets bound within. Josh cautiously approached, his eyes flickering between the book and the specters lingering at the edges of the clearing. They reached out, desperate and sorrowful. He grabbed the book, a cold shock radiating through his fingers, sending ripples of dread up his spine. With trembling hands, he opened the cover. The pages were filled with swirling scripts and illustrations, drawings depicting horrifying scenes, a carousel spinning, clowns weeping, and shadows clawing at escaping souls. And there, at the end of the book, was a stark representation of 7 rules etched into the parchment. His heart raced as he read. 1. Never summon the dark. 2. Never draw near the carousel after midnight. 3. Never trust what you see. 4. Never stand still in the dark. 5. Never ask for what you cannot afford to pay. 6. Never deal with what you cannot see. 7. Always remember what has been lost. The last sentence whispered truth into the air, catching in his throat. The tone shifted, sliding into a harmonized whisper that chilled him to his core. Always remember what has been lost. The echo of familiar voices rang out, each sentiment rippling like waves through his consciousness. The fog grew heavier, and understanding descended upon him like a shroud, mixing with the bitter taste of regret and longing. The girl! He shouted, his voice reverberating in the silence. She is lost. Suddenly, the shadows surged, rushing him with anger and desperation. You've learned the rules, boy, but do you comprehend their meaning? Came the hissing voice of the dark figure, growing ever closer. Each rule binds you tighter, limits your movement. What will happen when you break them? The shadows writhed in unison, closing in around him. It was suffocating, but in that moment, the weight of his devotion to the girl coursed through him. He couldn't let this end like this. Not when he had the chance to save her. Your rules do not bind me. He cried defiantly, clutching the book tightly as if it were a talisman against the encroaching darkness. I choose to face the truth, whatever it may be. I choose to remember. With those words, a blinding light erupted from the book. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in a cacophony of agony as the light expanded, illuminating the faces of the tortured spirits. They surged toward him as if drawn to the warmth, hope sparking in the depths of their hollow eyes. Help us! They called in unison, their pleas resonating within him. Free us! With newfound courage, Josh turned the page, focusing on the specters. I will not let your pain be in vain. He shouted, pouring every ounce of emotion into the words. You've been forgotten, but I remember. Then came a thunderous roar, and the carousel materialized in the center of the clearing, spinning wildly, shadows racing around it like fireflies in a storm. Josh sprinted forward, urging the lost souls to his side, rallying their strength. As he reached the carousel, he could feel the girl's presence among them. I will save you, he whispered, determined. Summoning all that he learned, he raised the book high. You will not claim any more souls. Light burst forth from the pages, cascading over the carousel, intertwining with the shadows. The laughter turned from sinister to joyous, echoing memories of the past. The spirits began to glow, radiating warmth and love, pushing back against the darkness. Josh's courage swelled as he felt the collective strength envelop him. Release them! He yelled, the power of his voice shattering the grip the shadows held. They deserve to be free. The shadows writhed and shrieked, desperately clawing against their own undoing. The carousel began to shatter beneath the empowering light, and with one final echoing plea, the spirits soared skyward, overcoming the darkness. His heart swelled. In that moment, he understood, the true price of the curse wasn't his own sacrifice but the act of remembering and releasing those lost to despair. Josh collapsed to his knees, breathless, feeling the weight of it all slip away. In his mind, clarity washed over him. He had faced the darkness, embraced the truth, and freed those who had suffered so long. As the moonlight flooded the clearing, the shadows receded, leaving only a gentle breeze. The air felt lighter, filled with a sweet sense of freedom. The stillness that followed was profound. The whispers of the past faded like the soft glow of sunrise. And in the luminescence, he felt her presence, the girl, her face aglow with peace. Thank you, she whispered, her voice echoing in his heart, now I can finally rest." Josh smiled through fresh tears, knowing that the nightmares had finally come to an end. He stood, resolving to carry their memories with him, promising to honor the lost as he turned toward the path leading back home, ready to embrace life anew. The world around him had forever changed, and in that truth, he discovered his own redemption. "Remember what has been lost," he breathed, a quiet pledge vibrating with hope. As he walked into the dawn, whispers of brighter tomorrows filled the air, carrying the sweet sound of laughter, the laughter of children, free once more. Now that you've experienced this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't wait even one more second to ensure you don't miss out on our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. Trust me, it makes a difference and your support means everything to us. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic ending. I want to know what you think. And lastly, be a true fan. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is vital to keep this community growing strong.